team which was always in the focus. So from GST, something comes into my mind is the payment. So Giridhar, I'll come to you. You are into a area where you're talking about so many payments and happening, and we know the turmoil has, who is the top person behind, who had created the turmoil in the payment system. So can you explain, can you tell how you see that the payment landscape which is changing, the speed, it's not just the speed, the compliance, the data transparency which is there. How has it impacted and how has it actually empowered the CFOs?
Thanks, Sugandha. I think when I started doing business, or rather handling business, there was these sessions where we were made to understand personas, HR as a persona, finance as a persona. For us, finance, initial thoughts, probably the initial days in which finance was introduced to me was, these are people who are pretty analytic, and they are averse to technology. It was more towards a fear of data theft. These were the people who were using feature phones. They never migrated to smartphones. That was the persona. And now today I'm sitting with you all, gentlemen, uh, sitting in a digitization session, which was probably a niche topic to be discussed among the IT fraternity. And then slowly the adaptation was towards HR. And a lot of projects were implemented which involved finance, but finance just took a part of it, but never initiating it. Now, probably out of the 10th thing business is doing, digital transformation is one of the top two implementations that's happening in the current business scenario. In the payments journey, yes, there are two parts to it. One is before a payment to be done, and probably after a payment to be done. Probably a small bit of story, how things have evolved. None of the business was aware that the major chunk of non-business, non-core transactions were happening on travel. And there were huge escalation because of the delay in approvals. And this was never brought to notice. This wasn't a transparent fact that just because the approver delayed approving by a couple of days, the major chunk of your travel budget goes towards flight. There's an escalation in budget. This was never noticed, or rather even questioned in many of the cases, because who are doing this spends? The business owners. It was a need of the hour. They had to do it, but they were doing in ignorance. In one of the sessions in the morning, there was this topic of a person taking a pen out of office is still an offense. It's still a theft. So business owners doing that with probably ignorance. Probably there was no tool to highlight it. Today in this generation, there are a lot of tools which will give this indicators to even a CFO and even to the business owners. So if a business owner is doing something, being aware of it, then it's his call. But being aware, am I giving him the right tool to see this fact while approving? Is he able to see the changes on a daily basis just because he's delaying approval? This also goes to the finance fraternity. What happened during COVID? Most of the facts of approval were with people, and people were not present on the job because whatever happened in their family, or there were people who were holding on to these positions for 15, 20 years. They were in key positions, but the fact of matter was digitization, when we speak about it, happened in pockets. Never as a story, as a overall org story. Digitization is a long shot. Now payments happen in one side of the story, but that information coming back for reconciliation still happens manually in many of the organizations. How is this impacting? The visibility, the budgeting, it surely impacts. Real-time information is never there with any of the business stakeholders because the technology is not being implemented at a long shot. When GST happened, it came as a surprise for people because technology implementation should never happen thinking today. It should be future ready. None of the systems in those days were ready to take it. Larger organization did an internal implementation. They deployed their own team building softwares to handle the change. But if the organizations were ready for change on day one, probably things would have been much more smoother. In today's generation, there is a payment happening in silos. Like we at Zaggle also, we have multiple products. There were larger establishments who were taking our offerings from different locations. But the negotiation used to happen post facto because this information came to finance, or probably they started seeing the volume of business they were doing with a particular vendor at the end of the year. What if this was presented to them at the time of doing business? If I could have controlled the payment. Today, they are commercial cards. which will actually give you a discount of up to 1 to 2% on any of your transactions. Workflow management, which you are mentioning. If I can manage a 30-day vendor payout cycle, I can extend it to 65 days. It's possible in the current day scenario, which probably implementing right tools of payments. Would a tool give me an indication of what is the right method of payment while doing a vendor payout, even if it is decentralized or centralized? But is there a capability? Yes, it is. Is it being implemented? It's a long shot. As I was mentioning earlier, projects were implemented by taking few key stakeholders from one department, probably 2 from HR, 2 from finance, 2 from a special projects in itself. But finance is such a sensitive topic, which not everyone in the org understands. It's very close to the heart of the CFOs. And the way it can be implemented, the whole storyline is totally different. The landscape has completely changed. I wouldn't even say before COVID or after COVID, with a lot of digitization happening, a lot of these transactions, which were generally not even noticed in earlier days, which were not even coming to the CFO, today is becoming a starking reality. A lot of business decisions can be taken. Probably the prioritization is revenue maximization, but vendor payout can also become a profitable thing for you. Instead of just paying 100 rupee payout, you would literally be paying out 90, or probably making a 10 out of it. Making it a profit center is the today's scenario. So payment management happens 2 ways. One is before the actual payment is done, how the approval mechanism is, can it be automized? And then the post facto, where does that line item come and sit in my book of accounts? And can it be automized? How does this whole transaction happen without a manual intervention? And the dashboards, as you were mentioning, it is pretty starking that anyone sitting across the country can see what's happening. So taking an informed decision is what the technology has done. And it's very, I would say I'm really happy to see the whole change that's happening in the right direction, digitization to the real sense. Thanks, Sunanda.
Thanks a lot, Giridhar.